Where does this put them now in world football? Just the fact that they've made it to the final in back-to-back years, does it cement them as, you know, what we expected from a few seasons ago when the build-up was there, but they hadn't quite got over the line?
Yeah, it's part of this new phase that they're trying to do, right, in terms of create a new legacy. Obviously, they went first with big-name players, obviously Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, and then they went down the route of let's get the best coach and create the best team. And what I said it last year when they won, I thought football goes in waves, and I think this is a new wave of team. So it's a full team. Wingers are exceptional, really excited to watch. Fullbacks are the same, but they dominate in midfield now, but not dominate in a different way to Arsenal. Arsenal dominate when they don't have the ball and they're going to run all over. These guys dominate with that, but they also keep the ball and they rotate. And it's not just one who's at the base. They rotate and come out. And the way that they play is fantastic. I think if they win this now back to back, I think we start looking at this is like a bit of a generational team. Does this end up winning 5 of the next 10? That type of stuff, because they're all young. No one's talking about how young this team is as well. There's still room to grow. If they were to lose a Dembele or somebody like that, it's okay. They've got somebody else ready to come in. They've done this game without arguably the best right back in world football, and they're still getting through. So there's no excuses. When you look as well from the back end of last season, played the most amount of games, got to Club World Cup final, obviously lose to Chelsea. They've had the most injuries since then as well, and they're still at this point. They're still winning the league. They're still in the finals of the Champions League. So it just shows how great of a squad they are and what they're up to. But I also agree with Grella. I thought Luis Enrique was spot on today. It mirrored the game against Liverpool at Anfield. It was like, OK, we don't need to, but we scored one. OK, tweaking game.
Do you agree with the best shouts for best manager in the world for Luis Enrique?
How do you argue against it? Is kind of the thing. How do you make an argument against it? I don't believe anyone is as good as him, but in-game tactical knowledge and tweaking, because they started the game, the first 20 minutes was the same as the first leg. Bayern were attacking, PSG were attacking, they get the goal, then it's like, whoa, okay, stop now, we're going to do it this way. And then the 54 minutes, I was saying to Nigel when I was watching it, look how they've changed again, because now they realised Bayern were getting too comfortable, they went and repressed again. Yeah. So it's like that in-game tactical knowledge, I think he separates himself from everybody else. How many coaches and managers do we see now, before I let you guys go, is the same method? It's plan A, and if plan A doesn't work, they do plan A again.
Yeah, there's a fork in the road you're going to hit as a manager, right? Amorim learned this at Man United. Hansi Flick learned this not long ago. You're going to come to a fork in the road at some point in the big moments. Do we still play our way, our identity, what we want to, like what PSG is known for? Do we, or do we want to win the football match? Right. And Luis Enrique is the best in the world. I hope these managers at home, and some of the managers maybe just starting out, and some of the best in the world are watching Luis Enrique to see how he changed. He went away from what PSG do. It looked like a 4-5-1 most of the time. Sometimes they had a 7 and a 3 across the back line. You know why? Because he wanted to get to the final. And as much as we love attacking football and the 5-4 from the game before, and as much as we love modern football, everyone on social, oh, thank you for the 5-4. As much as we love that, and we do, and it's good for it to bring fans into the game, football will always go back to, if you're winning 1-0, 2-0, you have to cover yourself first. You have to protect first, and then you play from there. There is no football where Luis Enrique with PSG, with the high attacking options that they have, that they were going to go attack in that game. They said, no, we have 2-goal cushion. You come to us. And Bayern had a difficult time making the game and breaking down, making the game in no space, because they left them no space.
It's so true. Did Bayern have a bad game, or were PSG just that good that they made Bayern look bad tonight?
PSG, for me, I would say, were that good. They played well. It's a Champions League's 2 legs. You're away from home, you've already got the lead, and you've got to be tactically right. There's more than one way to win a football match, but in the grand scheme of things, from being in the dressing room and how games we've had in Europe where it's home and away leg, you have to win games like that. And they did it the right way. They were defensively strong. They competed. They took their chances. And let's be real, they still played at times. Because I know what Grella said, and I understand what Grella said, but I don't want to make it seem like they just parked the bus and let Bayern come at them, because there were times when they broke at times. And again, they were missing that last bit of quality in the final third. But from an all-round perspective, when you look at the game, PSG played well. And there's elements that we probably get onto a little bit later to break down. When you talk about the tactical elements, you bring about the rotation. If people notice today, what used to happen was Marquinhos, who's your centre-back, was kind of playing in right-back position. Every time Luis Diaz got the ball, 9 out of 10 times, it was Marquinhos that was engaging with him. And what would happen is Vitinha or João Neves would drop into that centre-back position. That's all part of the coaching and the tactical element, because Zia Emery came in for, like you said, Hakimi is the best right back in the world. So you bring in a youngster to play in right back, but because you didn't want him to engage so much with Luis Diaz, you put more of a senior player there. You rotate by bringing a midfielder to fill in that centre-back position. That is all part of the tactical element that if you're really studying the game and watching the game, that is a big part of the grander scheme of things of what we saw, and they got the result over the line.
Yeah, because I don't think anyone can walk away from that game, Troy, and say Bayern Munich were the better team tonight, right?
No. Well, could they? I thought they
I don't know, could they?
I think they
you?
flattered. They had more of the ball, but they flattered to deceive in the final third. I think big games, you know, we've spoken fantastically about that front three. I thought the front three tonight, even though Harry ended up scoring, were pretty poor throughout. I thought Olise gave the ball away a lot. But it's a big moment. It's a big pressurised game. And I think it's unfair for us to want the same type of game that we saw last week. And obviously when you think to Arsenal now, you can't think the way that they did it. They handled that game and we gave them credit for it yesterday. But PSG handled the moment better than Bayern did, unfortunately. And I just think it's just one of those things.
Something Bayern got robbed. I mean, they did have so many chances. In some ways, it did feel like no matter how many chances they had, the ball wasn't going to go in for a large portion of that match. You say that,
but in all seriousness, how good was the Bayern keeper?
Neuer
made 4 or 5 good saves. So,
exactly.
You know, you can't.
He was incredible. He took 2 or 3 goals away.
Yeah, so it's PSG. I think it was still an exciting game, but I think PSG, it just felt when you was watching more of a feeling. Yeah, obviously, the guys could talk to the tats, but the feeling was more they had them at arm's length. Like, you're
the
just
whole
stay
time,
there.
100%.
You're just going to stay there. And Bayern kept doing what they do, which is playing. I thought Davis, when he come in, added a complete different spark. Maybe the argument is he could have come in a little bit earlier or maybe even started. But all in all, I just think PSG just had that little bit more nous, that little bit more game management, and just managed the occasion just a lot better.
They were prepared better for the game. This is back to the conversation of Luis Enrique and what he brings. If you're a manager, and you would know best because you were a manager, you want to prepare your team for what the game is going to look like. And Vincent Kompany says before the game, oh, just embrace the chaos. It's going to be chaotic. He got the game wrong, 100%, because the game was not chaotic at all. The game was simple. And Luis Enrique said, yeah, we're going to do the same things. But he didn't do the same thing. He changed.
Kompany planned for the game last week.
Correct.
Not for this game. Yeah.
And so he prepared his at home, all the excitement, all the tension. We thought it was going to be a great game. They thought the game was going to be end-to-end and back and forth, and they conceded the first goal because of that, because the center-backs are going all over the place. By the way, Bayern have 3 center-backs. If you put them all together, they don't make 1 center-back. There's another problem, and we'll talk about that later. But center-backs going all over the place, right, because he's preparing for, oh, let's go, we're going to go for it. Kvaratskhelia goes, boop, boop, little spin. That's something you learn when you're a kid. When you're 8 years old, you learn that. They go score, and now all of a sudden the game is not chaotic at all.
Yeah.
And Kompany failed to make the changes. Also, the players were not sharp. Olise, I thought, was unrecognizable in the game tonight.
Why was that, do you think? Do you think he just had an off night, or do you think the pressure of the moment got to him?
All of those things?
All of it, yeah. I think for me, he had an off night, and I think that it's difficult to just say pick one player. Like Olise, because we've got such high expectations of what they send, but the whole front three, they did not play well. They had a lot of possession, flat to deceive. There was no bite at the end of it when you look at this game today. Like you said, tactically, PSG were better. But for me, Bayern Munich just looked like, watching that game, I couldn't see them scoring a goal. It just looked like there was too many players off it. Apart from Neuer, who, like you said, kept them in the game, a lot of the players in this Bayern Munich side didn't really do anything. They didn't affect the game. And again, it's credit to how PSG nullified the threat. We talk about how they pressed, how they stopped Luis Diaz having a field day. They had 1 or 2 moments early in the game. Luis Diaz, Olise, but after that, the way that the organisation of that PSG team, it just nullified the entire team. If there's only one field player in the pitch that you give credit to, apart from the goalkeeper for Bayern, is maybe Kimmich. Kimmich just does his usual job in that midfield role, keeping the ball ticking over. But again, it wasn't enough to affect the game to really make Bayern look like a threat.
Also, as well, just want to give a little bit of credit to Nuno Mendes as well. Like arguably the best left back in world football, but Olise had a bad night because he was better than he was the first time. First time he tried to match him stride for stride, pace for pace, and got found out a little bit. Today he picked his moments, when to back off, when to go tight. I thought he had a great game, and
especially after getting booked early on in the game as well.
There's a moment in the game where you have to say, okay, he was kind of a little bit smarter. He was ready. He raised his level to another part, which made it even more difficult for Olise.
But it's quite funny, Paul, because obviously we had this conversation as well in the last show that we did about looking ahead of this game, and we say about moments, and you've got to read ahead the moment, and he'll know this more than us because he's been a manager. I said, looking at that game, it was great what we experienced last week. But it was impossible to think we're going to get the same next week because, again, you take away.
No, Grella thought we were going to.
I mean, it's Grella, isn't it?
He's just trying to get the people in. Business 101.
But this is the beauty of football, and this is the experience that we've had. You're going away from home as PSG. You know the fans are going to be up for it. Vincent Kompany said, you want to embrace the chaos. Yeah, it's fine. You've got to play with your emotions. Because if you get too overstimulated, too much adrenaline pumping, we've seen it before in big games when you go in, players going for a crazy tackle, next thing you know, red card, first 10 minutes, you change the whole dynamic and you kill your teammates. So I always knew PSG were going to go into a different mindset saying we're away from home, we're going to be more tactical, they have to come at us, let them go for this chaos, the misplaced passes, too much aggression, kicking the ball off the pitch, can't get a rhythm into it because they're too
Does any of that
pumped
have
up.
to do, by the way, with them already winning the Bundesliga title and having no real meaningful games in the last couple? Because PSG is still not obviously confirmed.
No, I don't think so. A team like Bayern Munich, this is one of their priorities. This is one of the remits of being a manager of Bayern Munich. They want to get to a final of the Champions League. They're a club that is used to winning the Champions League and historically known around the world because of that. That is something that's part of the blueprint of your contract.
For me, the question has always been about Kompany. Oh, can he do it in the big moments? And Bayern and Harry Kane and all those guys. And we're like, oh, can Bayern actually do it? Can they do it in the big moment? Bundesliga, with all due respect to it, they should win it, and they do win it. No question about it. But they want to know on the Champions League nights if they're good enough, if they're better. That's what the club demands. I think we got the answers tonight. Not because they lost, because anybody could lose to PSG. Most teams are going to lose to PSG. But the performance. The performance was not there. Tactically, energy, sharpness-wise. When you think of Bayern, you think of those passes. I said it in the last show that we covered last week. Those passes are boom, 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 boom. So precise. You know, the difference between this much and this much, the pass to the right foot, left foot, outside of the foot, the pace of the pass. The guys couldn't control the football. Olise couldn't control the football tonight. Harry Kane, every pass was like bouncing into guys. He couldn't hold the ball. Diaz was the best of them, but still not great. Musiala shooting like a little kid inside the goal with the wrong technique and the wrong moment. So to break that low block down, you have to be perfect. And Bayern, most games, they're very precise. But in the biggest of nights, at home,
they couldn't get a rhythm. They couldn't get a rhythm. And if you watch that game in the first 2 or 3 minutes, there was misplaced passes. And from that, it just became a snowball effect to the rest of the team. And every player started misplacing passes. And again, that goes to the whole thing of enjoy the occasion, but stay in it. Don't let the occasion get better of you. And that's all about the messaging that you have to give to your players. And again, Luis Enrique, more experience, got experience from last year winning the Champions League. He can give that. Vincent Kompany, great. Big moment for him. Talk about coming from Burnley, question marks about him. And look what he's done now domestically. Now this is the big test.
I don't think we can question Vincent.
No, I don't think.
I know you're not. There's an element of.
But he got outcoached tonight.
Yes, but also because PSG have been together as a group longer. The coach has been in these situations more. So it's just an experience thing. He can't gain experience overnight. He has to keep doing what he's doing, which is obviously winning the league and get into these moments more often. You know, you could say the same thing with Arteta at Arsenal. You know, they've been so close over time that this season they know how to get to those moments because they've experienced it.
Here's a look at the Sofascore ratings for PSG's starting 11 today against Bayern. Kvara had an 8. I think you can all agree with that. Anything that jumps out to you, Troy? What was the shock?
I'm waiting for Nigel to.
Vitinha. I need my glasses on. This is what?
6.4.
That nonsense. Absolutely bloody nonsense. You do not know nothing about football.
But he was getting skinned. Emery was getting skinned.
Who?
Emery, 6.1.
Nonsense. You just win second leg in the Champions League final, second leg of the Champions League to get into a final against Bayern Munich, probably one of the best sides in world football right now, and you're giving those ratings nothing about football. Because you didn't understand the tactical element. So Vitinha, for me, was one of their best players on the pitch today. Vitinha was as influential for PSG today as Declan Rice was for Arsenal yesterday. That is when the numbers make them the mess of football.
I don't disagree too much. Vitinha maybe, but the rest I think are very close. Kvaratskhelia probably could have given more too because he was unbelievable. Emery, I thought, out of position. He struggled a little bit against Diaz. Diaz, the best of the front four of Bayern Munich.
Marquinhos was solid, though.
Marquinhos was solid.
Pacho was better, though.
Yeah,
but Marquinhos was the one who stopped. We talked about Luis Diaz in their front three. He nullified Luis Diaz today. If you say who won that battle, Marquinhos won that battle today against Luis Diaz.
Well, this is interesting, these numbers, because they take into account everything, all of the stats and all of the mathematical numbers, completely separate to the eye test.
Of course. And that's why, was it Sofascore that gave us this? Thank you very much. We appreciate you, obviously. I've got your back, don't worry today. But I do think it's it is interesting when you're watching a game because there's those metrics will be like tackles won, lost, out of position. But when you're watching the game and the feel of it, I'd actually say the 3 that are the lowest were probably the most influential at the biggest moments. So I think Emre, while I agree at the start of the game, he got turned inside out. But as the game developed, he was bigger, he was better, he had more
pressing high.
And then obviously coming inside to pitch when they had the ball. I thought Vitinha is always going to be excellent. I thought Ruiz, who came in, added a massive calming presence in there as well. Yes, he wasn't ratting around the place, but every time he got the ball, he looked after it, kept them moving. So it's always interesting. I always think a stat is a basis of an argument, not the whole argument. And these were good.
So this is the comparison now between the 2 Champions League final managers. 3 seasons Luis Enrique has spent at the club, won 11 trophies along the way, already a Champions League and obviously so much domestic success as well. On the other hand, Mikel Arteta, 7 seasons at the club, 2 Community Shields and 1 FA Cup. How much pressure do you think is on Mikel to win this final? Troy, do you think, given obviously everything that he's put into Arsenal and them always getting one step closer, or is the pressure not on them because they're not the favourites in this game?
I totally agree with what Grella said yesterday. They're underdogs. And again, just from a managerial point of view, just looking at the raw numbers that we've got there, Arteta is the underprepared, that's the wrong word. Is the least experience in this situation of handling those moments. Even the preparation that week building up to the Champions League final. Luis Enrique knows what to do, how to get his players ready to do that because he's been there 3 times already. So when you look at it like that, managerial-wise, Arsenal are the underdogs and they'll play into it. Player for player, I think we would say PSG got a better squad. I would argue. Would you maybe differ? Maybe the 2 centre-backs for Arsenal and the goalkeeper are the ones that would, if you was to do a 11v11, that you change them over. Everything else, I think it'd be very difficult to move PSG, even with Declan Rice, again, somebody we all admire and appreciate. I think he'd struggle to get into that midfield because PSG's midfield is so good. So when you look at the whole collective, yes, it's the odds are stacked against Arsenal, but purely on the football pitch for one match, I think it's the perfect game for Arsenal. They get to sit in, struggle without the ball, and then as soon as they can, break, as we alluded to yesterday. I think it's a perfect game of football because it's 2 completely contrasting styles, 2 managers that handle things differently. And I just think we're in for an absolute classic. I really do.
There was a lot of talk yesterday, though, Grell, about who Arsenal would rather face, if they'd rather face PSG or if it would rather be Bayern Munich. And then obviously Bukayo Saka made a comment. No one was really sure which way.
He wanted Bayern
to take it. He wanted Bayern, you think?
Yeah, but Kimmich's comments afterwards, wasn't it, that they're just a set-piece team. So it's kind of, OK, let's get you again and show you. But they don't
that's the thought that I had as well. I thought it was Bayern. I just thought from the Kimmich comment, like you said, that he wanted Bayern. I mean, obviously, PSG knocked them out last year's campaign as well. So do you want to face them again? It'll be interesting. Yeah. I wouldn't want to face PSG just because...
Do you think, especially after tonight, they're thinking, oh...
I just think PSG, for me, like I said it before and I said it last year, that they're the best team in world football. You know, and Grella argued with me with Bayern Munich, which is a great argument. And I could agree with them being very competitive, but I still stick to saying, for me, the best team in world football is PSG. When you see them, the substitutions they make, the players that come out, the players that come in, the level does not drop. And they are very well coached. And like Troy said, going into this final now, yes, Arsenal definitely going as underdogs because PSG are the defending champions. They've been there, they've done it before. Luis Enrique has the experience as a manager in this competition with winning it and winning it with Barcelona as well, where he knows and he will make tweaks watching how Arsenal play and how they can be vulnerable at times. And I think that, for me, it's going to be a great game to watch.
I think PSG have all the tools in their toolbox. We've seen it over just the last 2 legs, but if you look across the Champions League, they've done it. If you press them, they're very good behind. That's how they scored a lot of the goals against Bayern Munich. If you sit in, that's what they see every weekend in their domestic league. So they know how to break you down in those little tight spots. Doué is impossible to stop. Barcola, Dembele, those guys are impossible to stop. Kvaratskhelia in tight spaces, probably one of the best dribblers in the world. If they're leading, can they play in a low block? Yeah, we just saw that now in the second half of the game. If they need to go for a game, can they do? Yeah, so they can do it all. Where Arsenal, I think, have their limitations in what they can do and what they can bring to the game. The game would have to be perfectly fall into Arsenal's hands. Like they would have to play in a low block, hit in transition, maybe get a set piece, and then try to hold on and survive, maybe hit on the counter again, where PSG has more tools in the toolbox over the course of 90 minutes. But does it make it more simple
for Mikel to know this is exactly what we're going to do regardless?
No, it's difficult for him.
There's also one more bit as well. PSG can just relax now. Their domestic league.
The domestic league is taken care of. Yeah.
They can now just start prepping
Does that
people.
Help? That always helps.
Absolutely.
Massive.
Again, you could maybe make the same argument with Bayern Munich, right? Their league's done, and then there's no competitive matches. But when you know you've got the final, you've got Hakimi who's trying to get back fit. Arsenal are still trying to win the Premier League, so they have to play their best players and their strongest team. But PSG can go, okay, no problem. We'll give you a few minutes this game. You're struggling. They come down here. They could just take their time, and if they actually wanted to, they could use the next 3 matches as their opportunity to just be in a situation of, let's try some stuff. Let's see how we do it. Let's change something different for set pieces, let's say.
I mean, Liga could help them out and just cancel their games, you know.
Yeah,
Liga helped them out with some games.
So it does lend itself to making PSG the favourites for those reasons. But on the flip side to it, Arsenal have the opportunity to make history, to be the first team that actually have won the Champions League for Arsenal in their whole history. So, you know, for all of the things we say about Arsenal, when you've got that extra burning desire as a player, you can make history for not only yourself but for your club. Those players are going to play 110%. So it makes for an unbelievable game.